Let's go get weird.
Last week's episode of From gave us a glimpse of the past. Fatima tried to build her own monster and Sophia sent Sarah on a mission. Oh, and we also found out that the man in yellow had Victor's mother for dinner. So, did they find the Lake of Tears and what was coming out of the water? We do get answers to both of those this week and a whole lot more. As episode 5 picks up all the plot points from last week's episode, it also seems we might actually be closer to getting some answers to this show, at least for Jade. So let's get into it. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about From Season 4, Episode 5, so if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. Now the episode does open up where episode 4 left off, with the bodies now floating in the water in the lake after being pulled out by the rope that they found, and I'll get to that later on in the video. But first of all, I want to open up with two characters who haven't really had a lot of focus this season, and that's Christy and Marielle. Christy is resetting Sophia's arm after she broke it last week, forcing Sarah to drink the water that was on that biblical mission. As this is happening, Julie and Randall come back from the ruins, and Marielle, who's had pretty much nothing to do for 5 episodes now, finally gets at least a portion of the story this week. She's seeing visions again of being trapped against the wall and hearing the screams of people that she thinks have died in the town. Later on, Sophia listens in while Randall and Julie discuss what they've been up to at the ruins, and Randall is starting to get annoyed with Julie taking all these risks. Sophia also seems to be able to trigger visions for people, as when she touches Marielle, she starts to have the visions again of being chained to the wall and hearing the screams. Sophia tells her that she's playing a prophet, so she's playing back into the whole God mode and God situation of it all, but the question is, what's her end game to this and why? Marielle is convinced something in the town is feeding off their suffering, and that once they die, they never really leave, which we've heard before, and kinda gets backed up by what happens with Jade in this episode as well. So going back to the lake then, as I said, when they pulled the rope, it brought up 3 giant sort of bodies that they refer to as dolls. I personally would have called them puppets, but that becomes clearer why they refer to them like that later on in the episode. And like Christy, Donna finally gets something to do this week and goes back to taking charge. There's a debate whether to actually bring these bodies ashore or not, and as they point out, they have to stay here overnight, and as Donna says, it's better to know what's floating next to them while they sleep. So they bring them ashore, and this is the shots that we've seen from the trailer, and there's quite a few trailer shots in this episode as well. So I did initially think that these were going to be some sort of versions or previous versions of Fatty as Gollum, but it turns out that's not the case. But it does seem that they are linked to the time loop or the repeated loop and cycle in the town. We also find out that Ethan's attempt to heal the bird fails, so that suggests that this isn't the Lake of Tears that he's after. So I wonder exactly where that is, if it's a bit more of a metaphor rather than a literal lake. So there's 3 dolls that they managed to bring ashore, and Donna wisely opens them up to see what's inside, and I did think that was a bit of a clever move on her part. But it's just rags and stuffing, so the question is then, why would anyone make sure they're buried or submerged in the lake? Donna comes up with the idea that they are sort of like scarecrows but for the lake, and they're there to prevent something from coming out of the lake, but one thing they don't address is they also could be there to prevent something from going into the lake as well. They decide to put them back in the water and weigh them down by stuffing them with rocks, and as they're doing this, Tabitha sees visions of her previous incarnation of a child at a settlement in the village, or the town I should say, where she's got this version of the dolls, but they're like child play dolls rather than these life-size versions that they've found. The group still need to make it through the night, so they wait out the night in the cabins, but they hear music outside that Tabitha recognises as a tune that she hummed as a child in the previous loop in the town.
How do you know that? How the fuck do you know any of that?
We see flashbacks of her playing with the child-sized dolls, and a man throws them in the lake, but before we can get any more information on this, the full-sized dolls burst through the cabin wall.
Go! Run!
murdering people, namely Jeff, and it's pretty graphic. Like, it's actually insanely graphic for this show. I don't think it's been as graphic since the opening episode of season 1. During the escape, the group gets separated, and Tabitha gets more flashbacks while this is all ongoing. As they're trying to escape, Donna gets attacked by one of the dolls, but Tabitha manages to take one out and saves her, so I guess Donna's staying around for another week. So unlike the creatures, it seems that the dolls can be killed or stopped and taken out, and it also seems that Tabitha might have a link or at least some sort of control over them. But what's pretty interesting is the cabin that they were in had a talisman up on the wall, so whatever these things are, the talisman don't work on them. And I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but I think there's 2 combatant forces in the town, and I'll get into that theory later on in this video as well. Notice as well there's 3 dolls, like the 3 painted rocks we've seen in Tabitha's other flashbacks as a child in the town, so I do think that she might be controlling them without realising it. And also, how did the dolls get out of the water as well if they're weighed down? But let me know what you think about all that in the comments below. Now let's get to the main story this week, and for once it's not Boyd, it's Jade. Back in the town, the mushrooms have started working and Jade is tripping, seeing spiders all over him that aren't really there. Now we have seen spiders in this show before, namely going back to season 1 when Boyd and Sarah were in the forest, so I wonder how big a role they're going to play going forward. Jade needs Boyd's help to determine what's real and what's not, and they venture off looking for clues after Jade sees a literal sign. And I do mean a literal sign. So he's looking for answers to questions, namely how to get into the town. He also tries to access the memories that he used to have of previous lives in the town, and all I'm going to say at the moment is that's a very much careful what you wish for scenario. But he does see a vision after hearing the violin music, and it is a vision of his younger self playing at his grandmother's funeral the day that she died. We also see the vision before of the man holding the skull who's been stabbed in the eye, giving him the Ankui treatment, and he wants Jade to drink the blood from the skull. And as Boyd points out, he may as well do it because it's not real after all, but the younger Jade warns him not to do this as he's going to get answers to questions that he doesn't want. They arrive at Colony House and Jade sees several visions of people that he's seen before throughout the season, all playing the violin, including the man that he's seen getting crushed by the rock all the way back in season 1. Did you notice that as well? Let me know in the comments. So we find out that all these different people are Jade, or at least a version of him in previous lives or previous loops in the town. So he's lived as part of this loop through many times in many generations, and the younger version of Jade says these are only some of the lives that he's lived, so God knows how long this has been going on before. But Jade realises that these versions of him weren't killed by the creatures, they were murdered by the townspeople in each loop, after discovering the truth between him, Tabitha and the children. So every loop the townspeople turn on him, learning what he's done, murdering him, and the younger Jade says that Tabitha's fate is going to be even worse, but we don't get any more details on that. Younger Jade guides him to Colony House basement where they find a door and a tunnel, and if you didn't notice when he goes into the tunnel initially, it does have electric lights, at least for a portion of it, before it goes into darkness. Jade goes deeper into the tunnel, finding where the children seemingly were sacrificed, as we do see a sort of child skeleton next to him in the ground, and he comes across the monsters who have been pretty much mostly absent this season as well. So it seems that he's been led into some kind of trap by his younger self, but the monsters then cut away to reveal the children surrounding them before Jade wakes back up in Boyd's office, apparently having never left. So his entire trip was just a dream or a trip that he had, and he didn't actually leave Boyd's office for all these hours according to Boyd. But he now knows how to save the children, and that's pretty much where the episode ends. So we got some huge reveals this week specifically for Jade, as we get it confirmed that whatever is going on in the town is basically a loop or a cycle that he's relived again and again. But we get more questions and answers about Tabitha and her links to the town and her part in the loop too. I've said in previous videos I think there's 2 forces working in the town that aren't good or evil, they're just competing forces, and now I'm starting to think that these forces could be Jade and Tabitha. I like this week that it was a bit of a Boyd light episode, as he can't dominate the episode every week, and we got some characters like Donna, Krista and Marielle actually doing stuff for the first time this season. But my main complaint with the show is there still are too many characters for the story to cover. Kenny, Fatima and Ellis were in this week's episode but literally done nothing. Elgin wasn't even in it, and did we really need all that stuff with Victor and Henry? I really feel like this show has to trim down the number of characters in order to focus on the plot and the story points that they want to tell. Sophia also didn't really do much this week, and Sarah, after her whole mission last week, was absent as well in episode 5. But again, we got some answers and the story is moving forward. I've done a theory video on how I think the man in yellow and Julie are linked, so if you haven't watched that, I'll leave a link to that at the end of this video, and I want to hear your theories on pretty much what you think's going on. How did you feel about the big reveals with Jade? What do you think's going on with Tabitha? And what has Sophia got planned next? Because as always, these are just my thoughts, so let me know what you think in the comments below. I am still enjoying the show, but I do think, as I've said, they're trying to cover too much ground with all these characters and they need to start getting rid of some of them. Whether that's going to be Donna, we're going to have to wait and see. Now, if you've made it this far, as always, thanks for watching. If you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. And my name's Al.